Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, it's hello JD and goodbye JT. The Dodgers signed JD Martinez and the Red Sox countered by taking Justin Turner from the Dodgers. So we're going to talk all about those things, a couple other little minor things, but mostly talking about Justin Turner and JD Martinez today. That's what's on tap. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now, and then you will never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time watching or listening, my name is Jeff Snider. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So again, please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. And let's get started because this is a bittersweet day for Dodger fans. The big news, it wasn't the first news of the weekend. It was actually the last news of the weekend, but it's the big news. Justin Turner is not coming back to the Dodgers. He signed a potential 2-year deal with the Red Sox. I've seen one person describe it as a 2-year deal with an opt-out. Another person describe it as a 1-year deal with a player option for the second year, which both mean exactly the same thing. One of the many contributions that Scott Boras has made to making baseball more confusing is creating this thing called the opt-out and pretending it was any different than a player option. And obviously, there's some situations where it is different. They'll have an opt-out in the middle of a contract or whatever. But, in this case, either way, Justin Turner is going to get about $15 million from the Red Sox in 2023. And then if he sticks around, he'll get another $6 million in 2024. And that choice to stick around is up to him. And there's a potential $1 million in incentives based on how he does in 2023. That 2024 salary could jump up to $7 million if he exercises that option. And yeah, the big news though for us is he's not coming back to the Dodgers. And that kind of ties into the other news, which is that the Dodgers signed JD Martinez, because when the Dodgers signed JD Martinez on Saturday, that made it a little bit less likely that Justin Turner would be coming back because JD Martinez is, for all intents and purposes, a full-time DH. And the Dodgers have never had a full-time DH. There's only been 2 seasons that the Dodgers had a DH at all. That was in 2020 and in 2022. And both years, the Dodgers used DH as kind of a position to give guys a break. And I'm interested to see what they do because one of the guys who they used it for last year was Will Smith, to let him kind of get off his feet, get a break. And we've talked about that, how much different it is to catch a full game than to just only have to worry about hitting in a game. A catcher's job is very hard, and the Dodgers liked using that position for Will Smith. So do they put JD Martinez on the bench on the days that Will Smith needs to be DH? Do they try to play JD Martinez in the outfield? It's kind of crazy. And so going with the full-time DH, Justin Turner got more at bats at DH than anybody else on the Dodgers last year. Almost half of JT's at bats came as the DH. And chances are that percentage was going to go up more this year. It looks like the Red Sox aren't even considering having him play third base. They have Rafael Devers, at least for now. And so they're not considering JT a third baseman. I saw him described as a first baseman / DH. JT's never been a first baseman. I mean, he's played a little first base, but he's not a first baseman. He can probably do it. Most guys can play first base, at least well, especially if they're hitting. They can play first base well enough to be in the lineup. Jock Peterson was a notable exception. JT can probably play first base. We know he can DH. But yeah, so when they signed JD Martinez, it made it less likely. But what I've realized in hindsight, and it's hard. Yeah, I do a Dodgers podcast 5 days a week. As you know, I talk about the Dodgers a lot, and I try to be impartial. I try to be logical. And there are some players that I have a hard time being impartial and logical about. Clayton Kershaw is obviously number one. For me, Clayton Kershaw needs to be a Dodger forever and ever until he retires, no matter how smart it is or anything else. That's what should be. And JT, I feel almost as strongly about, not quite as much. But I also know there's a lot of you out there who do feel that strongly about Justin Turner. The way I feel about Clayton Kershaw, you feel exactly the same way about Justin Turner. And so I know this is a rough day for a lot of people. And obviously, we all have the perspective. We know that in the grand scheme of things, there are more important things than a free agent signing somewhere else. And if we've been a baseball fan long enough, we've seen this happen many, many times, even for the Dodgers, especially if you've been around, that Dodgers infield of the 70s. Bill Russell is the only one who stuck around to the end of his career. He was also the worst of the four. Steve Garvey signed with the Padres as a free agent. The Dodgers traded Ron Cey to the Cubs, traded Davey Lopes to, I don't know, the A's or something. And so maybe Lopes was a free agent. I don't know. But, they replaced Davey Lopes with Steve Sachs. And that it happens in baseball. And all of those guys, Garvey and Say, they are still associated with the Dodgers. Lopes has been. He was a coach. He's he's not as actively associated with the Dodgers as Garvey and Say are, but they are still Dodgers. Justin Turner is still going to be a Dodger. He's going to retire at some point in the not too distant future, and he's going to be a Dodger. He's going to be on the Dodgers coaching staff or an ambassador or on their commentating team or something. There's been talk that he might be the Dodgers manager someday. I don't think any of that changes. I don't think JT's long-term relationship with the Dodgers changes at all from this. But what does change is he's not going to be a Dodger next year. He's going to be playing for a different team, wearing a different uniform. And this really is, we joked last week about Jerry Seinfeld's old comedy bit about rooting for laundry, that we don't really care who's wearing the uniform. We're rooting for the laundry, the uniform. And, we've seen that tested before. I mentioned last week, 2010, when in the same week, the Dodgers non-tendered Russell Martin, my favorite player, and they signed Juan Uribe, my least favorite player. And that worked out. Juan Uribe ended up being very good for the Dodgers for a while. Russell Martin came back to the Dodgers. Life goes on. We all, we deal with these things. Justin Turner, it's a hard one. And I think part of the reason it's not quite as hard for me as it would have been with Clayton Kershaw is because JT has worn different uniforms before. Justin Turner, played in the minors with the Reds, played in the majors with the Orioles and the Mets before he came to the Dodgers. So it's not like I can't even picture him in another uniform. Clayton Kershaw, I can't picture him in another uniform, and I don't want to. Justin Turner, I've seen him in another uniform. I've watched him play in other uniforms. I don't have to like it, though. I didn't want to see him in another uniform. And I thought the Dodgers would get this done, but this is where it comes back to, like I started to say before I got derailed. In hindsight, when this free agent market took off the way that it did, it's kind of clear JT was going to have to take a hometown discount to stay with the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers would have kept Justin Turner. They signed JD Martinez to a 1-year, $10 million deal. And I think that type of deal might have been available for JT somewhere in that ballpark anyway. But Justin Turner, he has evidence that he can still hit, and he wants to keep playing. And he didn't want to, fill the role that the Dodgers are going to have available for him. And I get it, and I understand. And for me, I'm trying to look at this from Justin Turner's standpoint. Obviously, he's bummed to be leaving the Dodgers, but it's also a choice he made too. And it takes two people to sign a contract. It takes two people to break up. And so I hope Justin Turner's happy because I really like Justin Turner. He's reunited with some of his old teammates, including Kenley Jansen, very close with Kenley. You remember in 2016, Kenley and JT were free agents together, and they made the decision together to come back to the Dodgers. So they're back as teammates now. Kike Hernandez is on that team. Alex Verdugo's on that team. There's a lot of good memories. I think JT's going to have fun playing in Boston. I think, it might be really good for him, that wall in left field. I think he could maybe pepper some doubles off that wall. I'm hoping it's a good move for Justin Turner. I'm just pretty sad for me as a Dodger fan. I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, about JD Martinez, how he fits in with the team as a replacement for JT, basically. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the recently ended World Cup, we've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I am back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. When you're done with this episode, for your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. It'll probably be a pretty fun episode today. There was a lot of wild action in the NFL, and man, I'm recording alone and I have to sneeze. Hold on one second. Excuse me. Thank you. If Vince was talking, I could have just, put him on full screen and muted myself. Nobody would have known. But because I'm alone, when I sneeze. So apologize for that. I'm only human. I do appreciate you guys checking out Locked On Dodgers every day. It means a lot to us. Love to hear your thoughts. I know there's going to be a lot of thoughts, a lot of emotions about Justin Turner leaving the Dodgers, about JD Martinez coming to the Dodgers. So if you're watching on YouTube, please comment in the comment section below. If you're listening on the podcast, love to hear from you through social media or email or whatever. I'll give you all the contact info at the end of the episode, like I always do. But yeah, so JD Martinez signed with the Dodgers for 1 year, $10 million. And he will presumably be their primary DH. I don't know if he will play. Let's see. He didn't play in the field at all in 2022. He's played a little bit of left field and a little bit of right field most years. He hasn't been primarily an outfielder since 2017. And that was because he in 2017 with the Diamondbacks and before that with the Tigers, he was primarily an outfielder. It wasn't until 2018 that he was primarily a DH, but he was a bad outfielder. and that's meaningful. There's a reason he got turned into a DH, and he's a very good athlete, but he's not a good outfielder, and that's just how it is. So the vast majority of his at bats are going to come at DH, which, like I already talked about, the impact that has on Will Smith and other people who might need days off. But just purely from an offensive standpoint, JD Martinez is probably a slight upgrade over Justin Turner. They both got good in 2014. JD Martinez with the Tigers, and he came over from the Astros. Kind of a similar deal. The Astros basically gave up on JD Martinez, and he recreated his swing and turned into a different hitter. And starting in 2014 with the Tigers, he was good. Justin Turner, same timeline. The Mets gave up on him. He rebuilt his swing, signed with the Dodgers, and became a good hitter in 2014. Their careers are very parallel. And if you look at their production for the first several years, they're right in line. But overall, since 2014, Justin Turner has an OPS plus of 133, meaning he's been 33% better than league average since he became a good hitter. JD Martinez has been 41% better. He has an OPS plus of 141. JD Martinez he was born in August of 1987. Justin Turner was born in November of 1984. So JD Martinez is nearly 3 years younger than Justin Turner. And that's meaningful too. The question with JT wasn't can he hit or wasn't did he hit well in 2022? He did. He had that really, really, really bad start. And then he hit really well the rest of the season until his shin injury at the end of the year slowed him down and probably hobbled him in the postseason where he was really, really bad. But for the most part in 2022, Justin Turner was really good. Well, JD Martinez had a down year in 2022, and he was a tiny bit better than Justin Turner. JD's OPS plus was 117. JT's is 116. JD's OPS, raw OPS was 790. JT's was 788. They were basically the same hitter. JD Martinez was a little bit better. And overall, he's been a better hitter each year. And like I said, the question isn't, did JT hit? Well, last year it was the slow start and the inability to come back from the injury were those signs that he is aging and that he's not going to be as good next year. And that's kind of it's a hard game the Dodgers have to play because obviously we've seen with Clayton Kershaw, the Dodgers kind of put Kershaw's feelings ahead of any sort of baseball thoughts. They said, we want you back. We'll give you your time to decide it. We're not going to make a qualifying offer. Everything, they did everything to make it easy for Kershaw to come back. JT, it's not quite the same thing. And some of that has to do with the fact that JT is 3 years older than Kershaw. Maybe in 3 years, the Dodgers wouldn't be quite as accommodating for Kershaw. Maybe they'd say, we want you back, but it's at this price and take it or leave it. And I think that's probably close to what they did with JT. I think they said, we want you back. We're willing to pay this much. I don't know if they made a formal offer or not. We'll probably find out in the next several days. We'll get a little more information about how this all went down. Hopefully we will. But my guess is, yeah, they made it clear to him what they could do. And then he had the option of taking that or going somewhere else for more money, more playing time, maybe. And basically, as a professional athlete, you don't get to be a major league player without having a little bit of an ego, and not in a bad way, but you have to have confidence in yourself. And I think Justin Turner has a lot of confidence in himself as a baseball player. And I think there's probably some of him that wants to prove the Dodgers wrong right now. And, and if not, and even if there's some doubt in there, well, if he could get $8 or $10 million from the Dodgers or $15 million from the Red Sox, or even 21 million from the Red Sox or whatever, why wouldn't he? Even if there's doubt, that's where you say, okay, well, my career's coming to an end. Let's get every dollar I can, because every dollar you get is a dollar you don't have to earn later. And Justin Turner's not going to be hurting for money. He has earned over $100 million in his career. I assume that he and Courtney are pretty good with their money. I think they're going to be fine financially, but this is, they do a lot of good in the community. Even if if this is just, what, everything we make, we're donating to our foundation anyway. It's more money for the foundation, whatever it is. I don't begrudge Justin Turner taking the bigger deal. And I think that's what the players have fought for the right in free agency to do that. And I wouldn't expect Justin Turner, even though I hoped he would give a big hometown discount. Once we saw what this market was like, how much hitters are going for on the free agent market, in hindsight, like I said, it's clear that JT was probably going somewhere else unless he chose to take a big hometown discount, because the Dodgers didn't go big on any of the big free agents. They weren't going to go big on Justin Turner. They didn't go big on Cody Bellinger. That there was a market out there, and the Dodgers have shown that they think that this offseason is an anomaly, and that I think the Dodgers are expecting to look back 3 or 4 years from now and see a lot of teams wishing they hadn't fed in the frenzy of the 2022-23 offseason. And the Dodgers can look and smile smugly and say, well, you should have been like us and sat it out. And Justin Turner is kind of a great example of the fact that you don't really know what is going to happen with free agency, because if you look at the free agency period of the 2013-14 offseason, when the Dodgers signed Justin Turner, Dodgers signed him to a minor league contract. And if you look at the guys who got a lot of money that offseason, it's a lot of guys who you can make a pretty good case that Justin Turner has been better, not just more valuable based on what he was being paid, but better since then. You had Robinson Cano, Masahiro Tanaka, Jacoby Ellsbury, Shin-Soo Choo, Hunter Pence, Tim Lincecum, Brian McCann, Mike Napoli, AJ Burnett, Hiroki Kuroda, Curtis Granderson, Carlos Beltran, Irvin Santana, James Shields, Johnny Peralta, Wandy Rodriguez, John Lester, Matt Garza, Ubaldo Jimenez, Ricky Nolasco, Derek Jeter, Bronson Arroyo, Tim Hudson, Jose Abreu, Jorge De La Rosa, Scott Kazmir, Stephen Drew. Those guys all got over $10 million per year that offseason when JT was signed as a minor league free agent. And then it gets even worse. Scott Feldman, apparently he was a player. He got $10 million a year, 3 years, $30 million from the Astros. The Dodgers signed Brian Wilson to a $10 million contract. Bartolo Colon got 2 years, $20 million. Over and over, guys were getting contracts. And The best signing, literally the best signing of that offseason was the Dodgers signing Justin Turner to a minor league contract. The best signing of this offseason is unlikely to be Aaron Judge or Carlos Correa. There's going to be somebody. And, I don't expect the Dodgers to replicate the JT signing, but there is going to be somebody who we look back and say, oh man, all those guys got that ton of money and it turned out to be this guy who was the most valuable or the best value or whatever. And so it doesn't make it feel any better. I wish the Dodgers had room for Justin Turner, whether in their payroll or on their roster or whatever it is. And, I don't know how much Trevor Bauer's situation has to do with this. Like I said, hopefully we're going to learn a lot more in the next little while, but it hurts right now. And as a Justin Turner fan, I'm really, really sad. My family is sad. Justin Turner is my wife's favorite player. And we had a rough week this week. It started with an insurance mess up that caused us to have to spend 3 times more on our son's braces than we expected because turned out he wasn't covered by our insurance and we didn't find out until after the orthodontist had done the work. And so we paid for braces out of our pocket instead of with insurance. And that turned out to be the highlight of the week because after that, our daughter had surgery and had some complications from that. She's doing okay. Then my wife tested positive for COVID, so she's sick as a dog right now. It's been a rough week, and yet Sunday afternoon, when I told my wife Justin Turner signed with the Red Sox, she said this is the worst thing that's happened all week. And there's been a lot of things that have sucked in real life this week, but Justin Turner means a lot to a lot of Dodger fans, including a lot of them that live in my house. So this is rough, and I don't like it. I get it, but I don't like it. And like I said, Justin Turner is one of those guys I have a hard time being logical and rational about because I love him. And I hope he has success in Boston. And I hope this next year or two goes really quick and he can come back to the Dodgers in whatever capacity because Justin Turner belongs with the Dodgers. So I hope he's back soon. I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about a couple other things that happened in baseball and with the Dodgers this weekend and what they kind of mean for the Dodgers roster the rest of the season. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. And please keep it Locked On Dodgers. All right, I am back. I want to thank you again for making us your first listen. It really does mean a lot to us. We'll be back tomorrow. Probably going to have plenty more to say about Justin Turner. There's probably going to be a lot of talk about JT all week. Probably some little things will trickle out. I assume JT will post a farewell to Dodger fans, which will be emotional. There's going to be plenty to say. Vince and I should be back together tomorrow, hopefully, leading into this Christmas week. Happy Hanukkah to those of you who observe Hanukkah. That started last night, and so it's the holiday season, and it's supposed to be a happy time. And even with Justin Turner leaving, it is a happy time. And other things that happened in baseball this weekend: Dansby Swanson signed with the Cubs, which means he won't be coming to the Dodgers, which means the Dodgers are officially not signing any of the big 4 shortstops. They've all signed. The contract Swanson got from the Cubs, I'm glad it wasn't from the Dodgers. It was too much money. It was probably too many years. I think Dansby Swanson is significantly worse than the other 3 of the big 4, and yet he got paid very similarly to them, not as many years, but close to the same dollars per year. And I just don't think that makes sense. And so I'm glad it wasn't the Dodgers giving it to him. I wouldn't have minded having Swanson at a certain rate, but I didn't really want Dansby Swanson. And I don't know what the Dodgers are going to do at shortstop, whether they're going to trade for Willie Adames or somebody else, or if they're just going to go with Gavin Lux. I think it's going to be okay. I think Gavin Lux will do just fine at shortstop. I think Lux has what it takes to be a major league shortstop. Probably won't win a Gold Glove, but I don't think he's going to be terrible. And so if that's what they do, I think that's okay. So that was big news. Swanson going to the Cubs, exciting for him. He just got married. His wife, Mallory Pugh, plays Major League Soccer. That's men's. The women's soccer league for Chicago, and so they can kind of be the first couple of Chicago. So exciting for them. Congratulations to them. The Dodgers signed the guy whose name I can never remember, Bradley Zimmer, to a minor league deal. He's an outfielder. talented. He was a first round draft pick. He has never hit in the big leagues, and uh, we'll see if the Dodgers can turn him into something. It's probably a nothing deal, but I talked about Zimmer a week or two ago on the show about how he struck me as the kind of guy the Dodgers might go after because he would be inexpensive. He is a former highly touted prospect, has a lot of talent that he hasn't been able to put together. Maybe they can turn him into something. Jason Hayward, there was an article about him in the LA Times. Jack Harris talked with Hayward over the phone, talked a little bit about his situation and how he came to come to the Dodgers. Hayward had a lot of suitors when the Cubs released him. Several teams were on the phone to Hayward, but the Dodgers were his most adamant pursuer and had the best plan for him. And basically, Hayward said he's seen the success the Dodgers have had with other players, and he wants to be a part of this. And the Dodgers, for their part, they see the tools that Hayward still has. He's only 30-ish years old, and he in early 30s, and there's no reason to think that he can't. It's not like he got bad because he got out of shape or anything. He's still got the bat speed. He's still got the arm. He's still in peak physical condition. And so if anybody can fix him, it's the Dodgers, and it is a no risk signing for the Dodgers. So Hayward, those were interesting thoughts. If you want to check out that article on LA Times, Jack Harris wrote it. Other stuff that happened in baseball. Oh, the Dodgers are in on Seth Lugo. We've talked a little bit about him. He's a guy who the Dodgers could pursue as a starter or shift him back to relief if that doesn't work out. There's not much else that has happened except, we got an answer to the Dodgers DH question. We still don't have an answer to center field, still don't have an answer to shortstop or second base. And so one or the other of those, they need somebody. It's but the roster's kind of starting to come together. Their 40-man roster is actually full right now after they signed some. I think the Syndergaard signing, when it became official, that put their roster at 40. They have guys on the 40-man roster. Jake Reed is back on there, and so they could DFA him if they need a spot. But one thing we know, unless the Dodgers sign Nathan Eovaldi, they won't sign. I think he's the only guy left on the market who has a qualifying offer attached to him, which means assuming they don't sign Eovaldi, then they won't lose any draft picks, and they will just have the 2 extra draft picks that they got because Trey Turner and Tyler Anderson signed elsewhere. So the Dodgers, knowing how well they draft and develop, that's exciting that they're not losing any draft picks. They will get their full complement plus 2 extras. So that's good news for Dodger fans. And the roster's starting to take shape, and it's going to be weird because the Dodgers aren't building a super team like they did the last year or two. They are putting together, hopefully, a solid team, and there are question marks there. And we've talked about how that kind of makes things more exciting. I would still, as a Dodger fan, I would much rather have them put together a super team. But we saw last year, even a super team. The Dodgers were legitimately the best team in baseball last year, and yet they hit a lull at the wrong time. They struggled in the postseason. I don't believe that it was because of the way the team was made up. I don't think there's something about super teams that can't work in the postseason. I think it didn't for the Dodgers, and there's a difference between didn't and can't. I think Freddie Freeman most of the time is going to hit well in the postseason. Will Smith is most times going to hit well. So is Mookie Betts. All those guys, and so I like the Dodgers' chances in 2023. I think they're going to be the favorites in the National League West, and hopefully they'll win the National League West, and then hopefully they'll have success in the postseason. It is going to be closer because the Padres and Giants are both trying their best. The D-backs have an up-and-coming team. The Rockies exist. It's going to be a fun season, and we know a little bit more about the roster than we did, and that's exciting, I think. So that's about all I have to say for today. Like I said, we're going to have plenty to talk about Justin Turner and JD Martinez this week, I'm sure. Hopefully there will be some news happening. I don't know. Christmas week can sometimes be a boring time in transactions, but Andrew Friedman, now that he's got some momentum going, building this team, maybe he's going to keep on going and keep on building and make some trades and whatever. Whatever happens, though, we will be here to talk with you because we are with you every day. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. And now for your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. If you're not watching or listening to Locked On Dodgers every weekday morning, we'd love if you'd add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. If you have friends or family who love the Dodgers like you do, please tell them about the show. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snidog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com, and our phone number for voicemails or text messages is 323-863-LOCK-5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.